I'm Merrick Masters, and welcome to Nixon's the One. Nixon's the One, 1968 in America, is a video documentary series which premieres next week on June the 12th, 2024. Nixon's the One video project, which I am creating, is based on a forthcoming book I am writing entitled The Phoenix: How Richard Nixon Rose from Political Ashes to Win the Presidency. Each of the episodes is based on research that I have conducted for the book, which I plan to finish this fall. The documentary focuses on Richard Nixon's campaign in the context of the events of one of the most turbulent years in American history. It was a year of tragedy, disorder, and war. Nixon had a remarkable political career, standing on the national scene since 1946. He still provokes interest and controversy, nearly 80 years after his arrival to Congress. I am an admirer of Nixon, though I am a lifelong partisan Democrat. If I had been old enough in 1968, I would have voted for Hubert Humphrey. Remembering the 1968 campaign, Nixon's election, and his presidency, I have developed a deep appreciation of the challenges he faced in the Vietnam era. Here's a list of topics we will cover in weekly episodes of Nixon the One, which premieres on June the 12th and runs until Election Day on November the 5th. We'll cover Nixon's announcement for president, which he made in a letter mailed through the United States Post Office. It was the Post Office then, not the United States Postal Service, to citizens of New Hampshire at the end of January 1968. We'll cover LBJ's dramatic withdrawal from the presidential campaign in late March of that year. We'll also cover Martin Luther King's assassination and its aftermath. We'll delve into the presidential primaries from Indiana and Nebraska to Oregon and California. We'll also cover RFK's assassination in California and the effect it had on the campaign. Plus, we'll cover the Republican and Democratic conventions in Miami and Chicago. This brings us to the general election campaign of the months of September and October, which centered on developments associated with Vietnam, including the full stop in bombing announced by LBJ at the end of October 1968. The video series will conclude with Nixon watching the election returns on November the 5th from the Waldorf Astoria in New York City and declaring victory on November the 6th, before returning then to his New York City apartment as president-elect. Stay tuned for the first episode of Nixon's the One, which premieres on June the 12th on my YouTube channel, Merrick Masters at Merrick Masters. Episode 1 focuses on Nixon's announcement as a presidential candidate, taking a glance at what the United States looked like in 1968. We'll also look at the Democratic and Republican candidates then, both those who were on stage at that early time in the campaign and on the backstage, who rose later as official candidates. And we'll also take a look at this in the context of the Tet Offensive. Nixon announced his campaign literally on the same day that the North Vietnamese launched the major Tet Offensive in South Vietnam, which dramatically changed the course of the war. Tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a professor of business emeritus, commentator, and podcaster. Stay tuned for my forthcoming podcast, which starts after Labor Day, called Masters and Volts, The Business of Politics. My colleague Bill Votes and I will be covering issues associated with the process of electing candidates and influencing lawmakers. We'll interview guests from across the political divide, Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives. We hope you will join us. I have studied business, labor, and politics for a number of years. I've worked at 3 universities and held a variety of administrative positions. I've also written several books and numerous articles focusing on a variety of business and labor topics. I'm a columnist and former radio show co-host. Union Member Radio was the title of that show. And I'm also a former Democratic candidate for the United States Congress in the old 18th Congressional District of Pennsylvania. Please follow me and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and follow me on X or Twitter at Merrick Masters, And I look forward to presenting you this video podcast series on Nixon's The One. Thank you and have a good evening.